Hello and welcome to episode 114 of the Yoga Life podcast. I'm your host, Kevin. This podcast is brought to you today by Movement and Meditation with me online. For €19 a month, you can practice with me. I have about 35 1-hour length classes, and I'm uploading some 30-minute classes now, which seem to be quite popular. Plus, you can do audio meditations as well. So you can go to kevinboyyoga.ie/membership and get yourself a 3 weeks trial, and hopefully you like it. That's the intro. So I'm a bit rusty. I'm just out of hospital. Okay. Today I have with me my Rachael Kinlan, who is a massage therapist, a reflexologist, and my love, I would just say, my love fiance, and Rach is also 37 weeks pregnant. Ain't you, Rach?
It's weird to hear it. You give me an intro.
I know, yeah, it's weird. What's it like being 37 weeks? Well done. Today is 37 weeks, right? What's it like? Why is it significant?
Because now the baby is full term, so everything is developed.
Everything's developed, so that means that from now until they're born, what has to happen?
They have to get a little chubbier.
Okay.
And then that's a bit like there's nothing major that has to happen. If I gave birth today, it would be just as safe as giving birth at 40 weeks.
Could you wait at least an hour just for the podcast? Please.
Try.
Thank you. Yeah, so to be honest, when you were first pregnant, I didn't really understand the significance of weeks, and even people would ask me how many weeks is Rach pregnant, and I wouldn't really know. Like I know why I kind of would think of it as more so months. But funnily enough, you were saying downstairs that the last time we did the podcast, which is episode 83, I think, you were actually pregnant then.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm saying it like I don't know, but because what happened was
We didn't know.
we didn't know. Yeah, of course. Yeah, we didn't know because we found out so the podcast was recorded, I think, December 28th. It came out on January 2nd, but the episode was like what we learned in 2019, and then we recorded it on the 28th, and then New Year's Eve came.
Yeah. 3 days later we found out.
3 days later we found out, yeah.
Yeah. It makes sense because I was very irritated during the podcast. It's like, stop breathing so loud. It's like, what's going on with me?
Yeah, but so we are going to have a daughter, and Rach is due on the 12th of September, and we're calling our daughter Eve because we found out on New Year's Eve. Yeah, so this is probably the last time. I mean, like very soon the baby's due. So the date today is like 20 something of August, and
3 weeks away from the 12th.
It's basically,
that is.
but it could come at any time. And we, how do you feel about labour?
Excited. Then we get to meet the baby.
But how do you feel about the actual process of labour? Because we did this couple thing the other day, where basically it's like a webinar, like a Zoom call, and it was 2-3 hour thing where they were talking about the whole process itself. And obviously, I'll never ever experience it, and I don't really know what my role is going to be during the birth. But are you like scared?
I'm not. I'm a bit of a mix, I suppose, of excited and nervous. Like if everything goes according to plan, I'm not scared. The only thing that I'm nervous about is interventions. Like I'm not afraid of the pain. I'm not like I'm not afraid of what it'll feel like or the recovery or anything like that. But I'm afraid that in case something went wrong and I had to get like assisted delivery, C-section, additional drugs, all this type of thing. Because you're kind of out of control a little bit with labour.
Mm-hmm.
You're really vulnerable. It's completely new, and you're in a hospital, and you know, it's kind of like everything is up to somebody else. It feels a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But doing the hypnobirthing course helped a lot. And it helped you to know if there's anybody pregnant out there listening to the podcast, definitely do a hypnobirthing or a gentle birthing workshop or program, because it really releases a lot of anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
Because they teach you like what is happening in your body, and then they go through all the different possible things that could happen, and it's all very positive, and they give you some tools to help you relax, and it's a nicer way to go in, I think, anyway, compared to talking to your neighbour or your mom or whoever, and they're like, oh my god, the trauma. Because you hear a lot of horror stories as soon as you start, as soon as people find out that you're pregnant, straight away they want to delve into labour. Oh, get the epidural. Oh my god, you don't know yet. The first, so many people have said, oh, it's your first baby, so it's actually better, because you don't know the pain. The second baby is worse because you know how horrific it is, which is like terrifying to hear, when you haven't gone through it. But I've listened to loads of positive things and kind of surrounded myself with positive stuff. So the anxiety level has gone way down.
The thing is, when I see people giving birth on TV, it's all very dramatic. There's a lot of screaming, and there's a lot of the woman will be squeezing the man's hand, and
the man's fainting.
A man's fainting, yeah. They were telling us the other day in this webinar that some guy who was in the hospital with his wife fainted and broke his jaw. And that's not uncommon for men to faint and be overwhelmed by the experience, because I suppose it's so primal, and you never experienced anything like it before.
I feel sorry for that poor woman. She's in the height of labour, and she's like, oh my god, I have to look after him now and worry about him.
Because I want to be there for the birth. Initially, to be honest, when Rach asked me about being there for the birth, she goes, do you want to be there for the birth? And I says, I don't mind, because I didn't know men went in for the thing. I know that my dad, back in the 80s when I was born, I don't even know if he's in the hospital. I'm not sure. He might have been in the pub. I have no clue, honestly. I definitely know he definitely wasn't in the same room anyway, because a lot has changed. Maybe that was frowned upon.
I actually read something about that. Like it's changed now, and men go in for the birth, the husbands or the partners or whoever you choose. But originally, when hospital births became popular, the men didn't go into the rooms because they used to use, what was the name of the drug? It was like night something. But anyway, they drugged the women, and they kind of tied them to the beds, chained them. They said we've got these great drugs to get rid of the pain, kind of like the way now you use an epidural so you don't feel anything. But they did actually feel it. They just couldn't remember. It was like erased the last 12 hours of their memory. Right. And they were drugged up all over the place, hooked to beds in cages. Oh my god.
In cages?
It was like bunk beds,
right,
that had a curtain in front of it. Okay. And they were chained inside, and they were screaming and moaning, and the labour was quite long. But they didn't want the men in. They wanted only the hospital staff in, because the men would be like, what the hell are you doing to my wife? Mm-hmm. And then eventually it came to light that, these drugs were actually just erasing the memory of the pain, and the trauma actually still happened. Because a lot of men saw cuts and stuff on their arms from being tied, and they were in bits after, and they questioned it, and then eventually now it's changed.
So they didn't let men in basically because men might have protested against it. Yeah. But then maybe they didn't let men in as well because they thought it's give the woman more dignity as well. But so I should probably say last weekend I had an accident, and the hospital have let me out early because I want to make sure I'm here for you giving birth. And I'll just say, because I haven't really actually explained what happened. Last Saturday I was playing football, and that sounds like fun, which it was. I played for all of 3 minutes, but I was involved in a collision, and it doesn't sound like a big deal, and it shouldn't have been. But what happened was the ball was there, and two of us were running for the ball, a full tilt, and he jumped, but I didn't jump, and he led with his hip, and my arms were in the air, so his hip went into my ribs, broke to my ribs. I think fracture might be the same thing actually. Broke to my ribs, and broke a bar in my chest. So when the bar was broken in my chest, I went down. I couldn't breathe. I was completely winded. I couldn't speak. And at the time, the football lads thought I was kind of messing about. I played on for maybe a few more minutes, but I just couldn't run, couldn't catch a breath. And then I went home and was with Rach, and I couldn't do anything. I couldn't sit down, couldn't stand up. I was in agony. And when I went to the hospital, they said, well, you've got 2 broken ribs. After an x-ray, I went to A&E. But they said the biggest concern was that the metal bar in my chest snapped. And I've had this metal bar since I was 16, so like 27 years or something. Is that right?
No.
How old am I?
More than 21 years.
Well, 20, yeah, over 20 years anyway. And 22 years then. Okay. So I've had, and they were concerned that because the bar in my chest is snapped, they said, you're going to need emergency surgery to get the bar taken out. And I told them from the get-go, I says, look, my girlfriend is 9 months pregnant. She could give birth any time now. I need to be at home. And ended up, I stayed in hospital for 4 nights. And when I was in hospital, they said, look, you're going to need emergency surgery to get this bar taken out. The ribs are going to heal on their own. That's fine. And I was supposed to be transferred on, so it's Friday today, on Tuesday or Wednesday, I was supposed to be transferred to the Mater Hospital for the surgery. But then I told them, look, is there any chance I can go home and come back for the surgery? And obviously, not obviously, but I'm assuming it's not an emergency because they're letting me go home. And here I am. And I'm feeling like I've been getting into the swing of things again, and trying to move a little bit. Did my first yoga practice today, and that seemed to go okay. But so that's just a little bit of an update to give people some context. And by the way, some people emailed me and said, or not email, sorry, direct messaged me and said, why'd you have a metal bar in a plate in your chest in the first place? And it's because I was born with something called pectus excavatum, and it's a deformity in your chest. So it's when I only learned this yesterday actually. When
I started asking you questions about it. You're like,
I actually don't know. Yeah, when I was born, I think it affects like 1 in 500 boys. When I was born, the cartilage in my chest didn't stop growing essentially, and my chest became concave chest inwards.
There was too much sternum.
Too much sternum, yeah, and
that came inwards. To make
yeah. Space. Really, it was really pronounced. So I don't mean to make this podcast about me, but just
no.
So it was really pronounced, and it was like a deformity. And I used to never take my t-shirt off. I'd go swimming with my t-shirt. And when you're a teenager, it's kind of embarrassing because people are asking you, why don't you take your t-shirt off? And, so it really used to bother me, messed up my confidence a little bit. And then when I was 16, I had the operation. It was fucking barbaric operation. I mean, I won't go into detail, but essentially I have a metal bar there now across inside my chest. And you're supposed to, I didn't realize this, get it taken out after 3 years. I had it done when slightly over. I had it done when I was 16, but then I left to move to Ireland when I was 18. Yeah. When I left then to move to Ireland, obviously I went off the NHS records, and they didn't schedule me in to get it taken out. So 22 years later, the doctors, when they seen the bar on my chest, they scared me. They were shocked. They're like, you've broken a titanium bar in your chest. It had to be a serious impact for that to happen. But the theory is, maybe it was in my chest for so long that eventually my body kind of broke it down, made it a bit weaker, and then on the impact it snapped. So the latest with this now is that I got a letter straight away from the Mater Hospital, ask me to come in next week for consultation for surgery. And when I get the surgery done, I'll be bedbound for a little bit, But I think it's better to be bedbound when we've got like a 2-month-old than at this stage when you might give birth and then I can't basically help at all. So that's the latest. You know, as I said, I'm going to bounce back and I'll find out more next week. But
It's basically an extreme way to get out of going in to the labour, to the labour ward. You're like, oh, I don't mind.
I'm like,
oh, I have to surgery.
But yeah, so I'm going to be there for Labour Day. Would you call it Labour Day? Is that it?
Yeah, 'cause somebody, a neighbour, was calling it D-Day. I was like, so
Oh,
funny.
Jesus Christ.
But it's like delivery day as
Okay.
well. So,
Yeah.
okay. But I heard that, I was like, oh my God.
But it's not so much for like, I don't know what I'll be able to do to help you, but what I do think is that, see, even I come out of hospital, I went took a day rest and I went straight to the gym to do a little bit. And me and Rach went to the gym together. Rach is 9 months pregnant. She's lifting weights. I
went to the gym to supervise to make sure that he didn't do too much.
Yeah.
Because he was like, I'm fine. And then I thought, oh God, he'll break another rib.
Yeah.
Pushing himself. And then I ended up doing it as well. Oh my God. I thought, he's just out of hospital. Was supposed to have surgery, broken ribs, all this stuff. It's going to be very easy. Oh my God. My arms, my legs.
Yeah.
Like,
And I'm not saying like everyone should do that, but I do think I think is so important in life is to do what you can. Now we're kind of lucky in a way that I feel like I understand my body quite well. Like in the hospital, they gave us these this apparatus for breathing, and none of the lads in the hospital were using theirs. They didn't really know how. But I was so used to breathing with yoga and like trying different breathing techniques to train my lungs that I think that's part of the reason why I bounced back so quickly, because they were saying you could get pneumonia if you don't start breathing because your breath comes so short when your ribs are broken. So I was so like in a hospital, I had my apparatus, and I was treating it like it was a workout. I was like, right, I'm gonna do 10 sets of inhales, then I rest for a minute. I had my thing out. I was actually listening to Rocky music as well. Yeah, and then I was and I was like, right, I rest for a minute, and I do another 10 breaths, and rest, and then I mixed it up like then sharp exhales and all this stuff. The next day I was doing like walk to the end of the corridor as fast as I can, and then take a break, walk it, and or you could just lie in bed and be like, well, doctor said I should rest. And then it takes you ages to get back. So I think like that's the benefit of developing yoga practices. You understand your body a bit better. You feel something, and you know, oh, that's not pain, that's discomfort. I can go through that, breathing, yoga, and a little bit of weight training. I feel like I'm back.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Almost.
Because I was looking at stuff online. How long does it take to recover from this? What he's going to be like? And everything said like 6 to 8 weeks, like 2 months. So I was expecting you to be in bed for at least a couple of weeks. There's no bother. It's like you're normal.
The only thing is, I will say just a little disclaimer that I did break my ribs, but there's different kinds of breaks. So I don't know if you've watched it on video. Maybe I can explain this, but like you can have I think it's called, imagine like a crack or a compound fracture where, I think that's what it's called, where the bone actually moves out of place. So if my bone moved out of place, I could have punctured a lung or punctured the skin, depending which way it went, right? Or I could have ruptured my spleen. I did have a contortion on my kidneys. That's why I was urinating blood, essentially, for the first night. And but the bottom line is I didn't have a compound break, so therefore it broke, but I think it's quite a clean break and it's going to heal quite easily. Because I know people that, when I was in hospital when I was 16, the geezer next to me, he broke his ribs in a car accident and both his lungs were punctured. He was in a bad way all night. So I wasn't like that, so it could have been a lot worse. And so you got to do what you can. But Rach, back to you, darling. Chatting about me too much.
Okay.
Would it be fair to say that during your pregnancy, yoga's been a mixed bag for you?
Well, I couldn't do any yoga at the start at all.
Why not?
Maybe I could have. I don't know. But the first trimester was so rough. It was awful. You're just sick all the time, no energy. And it was something that really surprised me because, you know, like I've never experienced pregnancy before, and I know, you know, from what you see with other pregnant women, you think, oh God, at the end they're heavy, they've got all their symptoms, they've, you know, all this, they've got all the struggles then. But at the start you think, oh, they're normal, they're the same shape, they have a bit of morning sickness, and on TV they, like, you know, vomit into the toilet and they pop off to work. I don't know. that is not realistic. Well, maybe for some women, I don't know, but for me, I was so drained. It was like being really, really badly jet lagged every day for 3 months, and then topped with the nausea and the emotional side of it. Like physically, you could do yoga, like there was no issues like lying on your back or moving, or nothing is sore yet or anything. But just energy wise and nausea wise, like you don't want to be going upside down when you feel like you're you feel like you're going to throw up. So at the start I didn't. Plus a lot of yoga teachers recommend not to do any yoga for the first while. I think it's 16 weeks or something. The second trimester was so good. It was like one day I woke up and I felt like I had a Red Bull. It was like I've gone from serious jet lag feeling forever to, oh my God, I have so much energy. I want to clean the whole house, and I'll go hop in the shower, and I'm going to do yoga and go to the gym and go swimming and do so much in the one day. But anyway, second trimester yoga was great. And it's still great in the third trimester. It's really, really, really beneficial to do. I noticed such a huge difference in my body if I didn't do yoga. After like 4 or 5 days, my hips would start to ache if I hadn't done anything, or my lower back felt stiff, or I felt emotional from not. I don't know if like you're emotional a lot when you're pregnant, but if I did yoga regularly, I felt like a bit more stable all around. But yoga is a bit of a challenge. It's okay now, but it was a bit of a challenge to get used to, because I'm somebody who did yoga quite regularly before, for a good while, and to go from being able to do a lot to restricting certain things is mentally, like, it's hard for your ego to, basically to be able to do back bends and twists and lie on your back and hold things, you know, for a long time, and then suddenly everything is heavier, your joints are looser, you're not supposed to go as deep. It's actually mentally a struggle to rein it in, you know, instead of like, I'm going to push myself to do better, which is really not what yoga is about anyway, I suppose. But like you want to do better in yoga, I suppose, but the main thing is supposed to be listening to your body, moving and meditating, isn't it?
Yeah, but I think there's an element of understanding, like if every time you go onto the mat and you're thinking, I'm going to take it easy on myself, that I don't think that's a good mentality, because but obviously it depends on your situation. I think it's more important to think about what, not to push yourself in an intelligent way.
Because what I realised about my yoga practice from being pregnant is that I actually care so much about progression and how well I can do and what the poses look like, you know, because suddenly, like, even though it was during COVID, so all the yoga that I've done is at home, nobody's looking at me or anything, but just for myself, I know this doesn't look right, you know. If I googled a triangle pose, this isn't what a triangle pose looks like ideally, or this isn't what Warrior 2 looks like ideally, or I can't stretch this way, and I used to be able to hold this, and it kind of gave me a bit of like I like, I don't know, it kind of just showed me that I like how much I actually cared about that before. And now, because I can't do that, my focus has changed more about what it feels like, which is what it should be anyway.
Well, I agree.
So, but it's so good doing yoga in pregnancy.
But you were saying downstairs that you find it hard now to concentrate when you're doing yoga.
Yeah, that's just like in the last week or two. I think I have a bit of anxiety. You know, you're saying about labour and stuff like this. I think there's like anxiety deep down about labour, and also about having a baby. Like, like okay, like the labour is one thing, but then suddenly they're like, oh, there you go. And you're like, oh my God, what do I do with this? How do I mind this baby? You know, it's a lot. It's a huge change. And I guess everyday life, you're on your phone, or you're talking to someone, or you're doing this, you're doing that. You're not like sitting in a meditation, or you're not like sitting in a pose, holding a pose, and everything like mentally is flat. All you're doing is breathing and feeling, and suddenly emotions bubble up. So I'm feeling like all these anxieties are coming up. When I'm doing yoga the last little while, so I'm struggling to finish. Like today I did yoga, and like I did like 15 minutes instead of the half an hour, because I was like, I can't sit here, I'm so agitated. I have to go clean something. But I think it's just like I'm giving myself the space to feel instead of numbing with life. So that I think that's a bit of a challenge, to kind of you know, sit with your anxieties about the future. Even though I feel very positive, I'm delighted that we're gonna have this baby. It's just it's a huge change, you know. How do you feel about having the baby?
I'm really looking forward to it. I mean, life can be very empty, and life can be really dull. You can sometimes think like, what's the point? I'm going to die eventually. You know, I don't.
Sorry.
Which is, you know, the fortunate truth. And sometimes when you're as well working, you're like, what am I doing this for? But you know, now it's like, without being too cheesy, but obviously I love you a lot, and I'm very lucky that to met someone like you, because it doesn't happen that often in life where, you know, we get on so well, we really do, and I think it's progressed so quickly because we we just have a good understanding of each other, and also as well, I don't think we expect too much from each other. You know, I have said before that I want to kind of be a provider and all that kind of stuff, blah blah blah, and that's fine. But what you don't realise is you might break your ribs one day, or you might, you know, be in an accident and you can't do a physical job or your job at all. You may experience a recession or a pandemic. You may get fired from your job. You may have something else happen to you that's out of your control, and therefore you can't then be that provider or that person that you thought you could be. So then if you define yourself that way, it's going to be miserable. I said before, you know, like, I can understand why a man would kill himself if he couldn't support his family, and, you know, and that's how he defines himself. I know, like, I've been to Japan a few times. In Japan, it's almost like the samurai code, that if you a samurai traditionally would like kill themselves by inserting the sword in the stomach, and it'd be like an honorable thing to say, like, I'm no good anymore, I can't do my job, therefore it's best I'm not here. This is why suicide is so high in places like Korea and Japan. It's kind of accepted as being honourable. And but what I've come to realise is that you don't see that as that important. You know, you don't see that you don't value me based on what I can provide. That's what you said yesterday.
Hey,
all right.
you broke your ribs, so your value's gone like down. It's way down. But I'm stuck with you now, I guess.
Yeah, but I would say we both have quite a stoic attitude or philosophy towards life. That being that you could take everything away from us. We could be living in a tent. We could have the basic amenities, eating rice and beans, and we'd still be happy because we respect each other a lot and we value each other and don't expect too much. And also we don't really compare, I would say. Sometimes you'll have, it's a bit like a parent saying to a child, like, why can't you be more like this kid? Sometimes you'll hear couples say like, oh, so-and-so, their boyfriend does this for them, or so-and-so's girlfriend does this or whatever. And that's terrible. That's a really toxic way to have a relationship. And we just get on so well. So I'm very happy that we're together in that respect. And then having the baby and becoming a dad, it feels like a natural progression for me. I mean, I am 38 years old. I'm almost 39 in a couple of months. No, sorry, in February. This is a while away.
You're always adding on to your age.
Yeah. But I feel like now I've done loads. I've had a good run of it. But I've had a good life, whatever. And
this one has gone very.
What? It's gone down, is it? Depressing. Am I getting depressing? Sorry. I'm don't blame it. But I'm looking forward to, like, even we listened to the Disney soundtrack yesterday and like watching Disney movies with her and just seeing someone develop and I mean I want to have like 3, if I could afford it, 4 kids even. But so I'm really excited about it, and the fact that I'm going to be losing sleep, I don't really care too much. I mean,
you don't sleep well anyway.
This is a dog, but So having a kid and like people, it's a bit like the pregnancy thing. People say, I go, oh, would you to have a baby? They go, oh, well, get your sleep while you can now. Very rarely do people actually go, oh, it's great being a parent. It's mostly like, maybe it's just a jest, but they'll say, oh, enjoy your single or, being free while you can and stuff. Like, it's weird to me that people would say that to you, but maybe it's a bit awkward if someone goes, it's going to be great. Yeah. Oh,
You're like, that's not real.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I want to hear the bad stuff.
But also, not just with the child, the whole thing. People are very negative. Like, they mean it in the best way, though. I think it's unusual because when people find out that I'm pregnant, or they could see that I'm pregnant, straight away they're like, "Oh, how are you feeling? Are you sore? Is your back sore? Your legs sore?" I remember I had like such and such diabetes or something. I you can develop like cramps and tingling hands and headaches, and be careful with your blood pressure, and all like non-stop. It's just like all negative, and then they finish off with like, and then there's labor. And then you have a baby and you'll never sleep again, and you can't sleep at the end, and you must be hot and you must be this. But they obviously mean it in a like, I hope you're okay, because it's a huge struggle. But actually, and it probably is for a lot of people, I don't know, different women have different experiences, but I've had a really great pregnancy. Like, the start was hard, your body's physically getting used to it and emotionally, and you're mentally getting used to it, because you kind of lose control a little bit when you're pregnant. Like, one day you'll have loads of energy, one day you'll feel sick, one day you'll feel tired, one day you'll want to do whatever, One day you're crying because your slippers don't fit or something. Ridiculous. But it's hard to kind of get used to the shift, because you live your life and you have so much control. You can change the temperature in the room if you're too hot. You can eat something if you're hungry. You can manage how much activity you do in your day. A lot of people can like choose what profession they want to do, or if they want to change that. But with pregnancy, you don't have as much control. Like, you're not the only person in your body, so they're making some of the rules and you're making some of the rules, and you kind of have to compromise a bit. So that's hard to get used to. for a while. Well, I found. But like in terms of the pregnancy, like I felt fine. Like I have no issues, no aches or pains, or I'm sleeping fine. And even at the end, a lot of people say the third trimester is the worst because you're heavier and you're tired, and you have a lot of anxiety and stuff at the end. But overall, I think it's been a really great experience. I feel really like womanly.
But I think in fairness to you, you have been putting the work in, as it were. You've been very active. I mean, you've been very very conscious, and I think actually you've done so much research. I'm sitting just observing from the sidelines here. You always, every day, you're taking time to research everything and do the hypnobirthing course. But I think it hasn't all been a walk in the park. Like I have found that the forums that you've been reading and stuff have sometimes kind of negatively affected you. So because it seems on these forums that the level of judgment is huge. Like someone will say something like, "Oh, I'm not going to breastfeed my child because I can't XYZ reason," and then it's that whole internet thing of like, will jump on and there's their moment to be self-righteous and to judge.
Yeah.
And I've seen you, and I've done it recently on my phone as well, where you get caught up in like looking at what other people have to say about something that you can't do or that you don't feel good about, and then you just end up down a wormhole.
Oh yeah, that has happened a lot. And it happens with pregnancy a lot because people have so many opinions. Like, somebody would say something like, "I'm going to get an epidural," and someone would go, "Oh my God, you're going to get an epidural. That's not natural. You need to watch this video or read this article, or I'm not going to get vaccinated, or I am going to get vaccinated." It's just like everything is a debate. It's like, oh. But it's hard not to, especially because of COVID. Like, we're at home. Like, I'm not working because you like, I'm a massage therapist, so you can't socially distance. So since March, I've been off. They're starting to bring it back in now, but I'm at maternity leave time, so I'm off work for a good while. But when you're off work and you're at home and you haven't got too much of a routine, you're like, "Oh, I'm just going to go research and read because obviously I'm very excited about being pregnant and going to become a mom. So I want to learn as much as I can." And then you get swept up, and it's almost like Coronation Street or something, or like, or even Facebook. Sometimes I have like Ireland AM on Facebook, and they put up something really controversial, and then there's like a million answers, like everybody fighting with each other, and you can't look away. You're like, "Oh, it's so juicy."
I know, exactly.
But this one relates to me, so I'm like, "Oh, it's so juicy," and also like, is she right?
Yeah. Well, even the latest thing that you're worried about, you read a horror story or someone had experienced it, and it was one story, but yet then you were like, "Oh, that's going to be me now if that happens to me." But you don't read when something good happens, no one writes about it.
Yeah, it's not juicy.
And then I think your instinct is, because you're going to feel so vulnerable in that situation, that when someone offers an intervention, you'll feel like you need to take it. Otherwise, and obviously the doctors want to do what's best for you and the baby, but there is an element of, you are a patient. It's not a massive deal for them, whereas it's a once in a lifetime thing. And that I feel like my part of my responsibility with you is going to be, if you don't want to do something, I'm backing you up and being like, "No, she means it." And even if you start to feel social pressure, I need to be there to say like, "No, this is what she wants," and kind of just to give you a bit of, otherwise it's everyone against you. Now that's worst case scenario. But that's worst case scenario. Do you know what, actually, Rich, before I forget, I want to give a few shout outs to people, because that'd been really good, just because it's on my mind. Okay. We went into the hospital. How many weeks you went into the hospital that time you stayed overnight? 25. So we had would you say a scare at 25 weeks? And I won't give second names because I'm conscious of confidentiality, but just want to give a shout out to Ali, my friend Ali, OBGYN at the hospital in Hollis Street. And it makes such a difference when you go in somewhere and you're feeling vulnerable to see a friendly face, to see someone you know. And she really looked after you, didn't she?
She was amazing.
She was amazing. So thank you, Ali. Also want to give a shout out to Maeve from when I was in the hospital this week. Again, Maeve is a nurse at Conley, and I was in A&E, and she made me feel comfortable. Anything from like a little bit of painkillers to maybe egg sandwiches and stuff like that, and that makes you feel like, again, so that was made a huge difference to me, because I was shitting myself.
Yeah, because when
not
you're
literally.
when you're in the hospital, it's scary.
Yeah, things are beeping around you.
You're like, what fluid is coming out of that person? And
easy.
Well, I'm sorry. Maybe when I was in the hospital, I didn't know I was in the pre-labor ward. I didn't know that's where they put me, and I was like, what's that noise over there? And why is that person moaning? I was like, oh my God. But they were all just about to go into labour. But it was so comforting to meet Ali, and she's explaining where I am, what's going on, what's going to happen, and just because you're scared. Like, and the hospital staff are great, but they're so busy.
Yeah,
so
to see a familiar face, it just makes it more personal. And one more shout out, Rach, to Fran. Fran, who I won't say which gym, but works in a gym, and me and Rach are in there, and we were pumping some iron, and Fran, this is the podcast, and he gave us a very nice, I don't know what I can say, but like, he gave us a good offer for the gym, which was very kind of him. So that's just 3 shouts, and those three people of all people I've met in yoga, it just shows you that, like, sometimes you build these connections, you meet people. I don't even think I've ever met Fran before, actually. I think he listens to the podcast, but I met him in passing, like, but it just shows you that, like, the community in Ireland, in Dublin, is like, can be really nice and strong. So that's just 3 shout-outs. Sorry, Rach. I wanted to say that because I didn't want to forget. I think it's really important. It's amazing how that can, like, make life so much better when people offer you a bit of kindness. But
and it actually does draw loads of people together, because so many times we've been out and someone has said, oh, I listened to your podcast, you're Kevin, and they're real friendly, and you meet a new person, and it's nice to actually,
it makes a big difference. It really does. And also, like, you get messages and stuff, and you've been getting loads of messages. It's funny, I was going to say to you, are you going to miss being pregnant? Because it's like, now you're getting all this attention.
I know.
I don't mean to be...
Nobody's going to care about you later.
You're just a mum now. Get on with it.
Yeah, I actually am. And I think that's maybe part of that ego thing that I was talking about earlier, where I'm like, I want to be perfectly in the pose for myself, so everything looks right. And now I'm like, yeah, I'm going to miss the attention. So I'm kind of like having a bit of an ego check.
Yeah.
Lately. But everybody is so nice to you when you're pregnant, like, to the max. Like, well, like I say, like, I haven't had many symptoms or anything or things to worry about. I've had, like, anxiety about stuff happening, like, what if this happens, what if that happens, from reading online things, or I have emotional days. But I think, like, I had those pre-pregnancy anyway, so it doesn't feel as extreme. Like, I've had, like, days where I'm crying over there's no milk left and stuff like that. But people are so nice when you're pregnant. How are you? How are you feeling? Are you okay? You sit on that chair. No, you take that cushion. Like, constantly. Yeah. And they're always checking in. And my family have been so nice. Like, you sit on that chair, they're rubbing my back, and all this type of thing.
I find that really, really moving when I see, like, it just the humanity in that people don't know you, and yet they're offering you their chair and stuff.
Yeah, of course. And even people, like, I'm walking Alfie, and strangers on the street are like, congratulations. Yeah. Well done. I'm like, well done. I'm just walking around the block. Yeah. But the compassion level is huge when you're pregnant. Like, and I've never experienced anything like this before, where people care so much, or you don't, like, I'm constantly getting messages of, hope you're feeling okay, or how big is the baby now, or so much interest in like, have you had your have you had a hospital appointment? Have you had your scan? Do you know what you're going to do? Do you need anything? Like asking if we need shopping bought. And when you were in the hospital, oh my God, the amount of people that said, I'll walk Alfie, I'll go do your shopping. It's, you know, to make sure that you guys are okay. And it's so nice.
If you knew what you, if there was like advice that you could give to yourself before you got pregnant, what would it be?
I think to relax a bit. I had a lot of anxiety at the start. I feel quite relaxed now, but the first half of the pregnancy, I was like, what was that movement? What was, and then if I didn't have a movement, why am I not having that movement? Or what is that sensation? Is this safe? Is this healthy? I know it's normal to worry and wonder, and you know everything is new, but I was constantly like, especially at the start, oh, you're not supposed to have a bath that's too hot. Oh my God, I had a bath yesterday. What does that mean? And oh no, you shouldn't have. Someone told me you shouldn't have certain herbal teas, and I was like, oh my God, I'm just going to like drink water only now. And the guilt that you just feel. I felt so guilty. Like the first trimester, I couldn't eat loads of things, and I was eating really badly, like eating chips and just like whatever.
We went off the rails a little bit, didn't we?
No, but I mean, at the start when
I was just doing it to support you.
Thank you. And I had like food cravings and aversions, and I was like, oh my God, the child is going to grow up obese because all I can eat is chips, and I'm never going to see the end of this. They're going to be nutrient deficient and everything, and like, you know, you kind of like at the start I had so many of these worries, and then eventually I got to a point where I was like, you know, you have to live. And people have been doing this throughout all of human time, and people have survived and they're fine. You know, if you have a bath, you know, it's going to be okay. If you eat a chocolate bar, you're going to be okay. So I think I would tell myself to relax a bit and not feel so guilty and not put so much pressure on myself.
Well, it's funny you said about guilt, because I remember you saying to me that you feel a responsibility. You're like, when you're this pregnant woman, everyone's giving all this attention, which is great, but then it's almost like if something happens, you're not just you're affected, but you're affecting an unborn baby. Yeah. So there's this pressure, and I never, when you said this to me, I was like, shit, I never thought about that. Like you suddenly have all this responsibility. Yeah. And a lot of it, you can't do anything about it. You don't know what's gonna happen. Yeah. And that's just something I never really considered, you know.
Because when I went for that big scan, the 20-week scan, I was like apologising to you before we even went in. The day before, I was like, I'm so sorry if something goes wrong.
I know, yeah.
I was like feeling guilty, and nothing was wrong, and nothing had even nothing had happened yet, but just the fear that if something went wrong, it would be my fault because it's my body and it's my lifestyle, and it affects you, you know, and me and the baby. So I was like, straight away I felt this huge weight on my shoulders of like, I need to really look after myself and this baby. And even though like you say, a lot of it is out of your control.
I mean, it may turn out that this time 3 months we're talking again and we won't, you know, breastfeeding didn't happen or whatever. And I think like one thing is to try your best, but then to not feel guilty or to judge other people because they couldn't, we couldn't do it, you know. I mean, I have all these scenarios I run by in my head that when I have a conversation with Eve, I'll be like, you know, for example, if someone does something bad and Eve's like, oh daddy, he did this, instead of me going, well, he's a terrible person, I'll be able to say, well, now Eve, we don't know what happened in his life and he made that choice and what can we learn from that? That's what I'm thinking in my head I'm going to do. But what, like we were saying the other day, how when I was growing up, my dad was a bit wild, you know, and my dad would, you know, I got into a bit of trouble when I was a teenager. It wasn't my fault. you know, I got mugged at knife point, which happened a few times. But I don't know how much I should say on this, but like my dad was, I probably shouldn't say that much actually. My dad was a bit of a bad boy when he was younger. Bad boy. but he was. So my dad basically went to like seek revenge essentially. And yeah, I'm not actually going to say too much about that.
But he didn't actually do anything because he couldn't find the people.
Couldn't find the geezer, yeah. But my point is, like, I kind of like that in a way. Like, I like that tribal instinct. Like, no, you ain't going to mess with my family because I'll sort you out, basically. Not having it. And I like that tribal instinct. Like, nah, you know, you don't do that.
Yeah.
But the reality is, you get arrested. I'm thinking like what you were telling me about when you were young. Someone stole your skipping rope, whatever. And I won't talk too much about that. What happened?
But my dad was the same. It's like, where are they?
Where are they? Yeah, sort of, you know, not to sort them out, but like to confront the parents and be like, let's have it out.
Yeah. Well,
and well, yeah. But you know, but it's weird. You think like you have all these things about I'm going to be this kind of parent, but I don't know until it happens.
Yeah.
You know, I'd like to think I'm really compassionate and go, well, Eve, you know, maybe they needed the skipping rope more than you needed the skipping rope, whatever. Or I might be like, right, I'm going down there.
where are they?
Yeah, you know, I'm hoping that I'll be the former, and but.
But it's like,
we'll see.
I don't know if I was watching it with you, but what's that guy's name? He's so funny. A comedian guy, Michael McIntyre.
Yeah.
He did a sketch about like what people think what you should be doing with kids, and then what the reality is when you have kids. You know, when you don't have kids, you're like, oh, well, should that parent be doing that with that child? Or if I had kids, I wouldn't be letting them run around like that. Or if I had kids, and then when you're a parent, you're like, you know, they did all the backstory of like, I haven't slept in 6 weeks. and what do you call it? I've already given the child a bath twice because they've ran in muck and, you know, vomited on themselves.
Yeah.
And I've tried to give them their broccoli for 2 hours and they've thrown it in my face, and you know, I've got nothing done today. And now we're in a restaurant, and you know what, fine, just have the chicken nuggets
and get on your tablet
and go on your tablet. And then all the other people who don't have kids are around in the restaurant like, oh my god, they're feeding their child chicken nuggets.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like Louis C.K. said, if you don't have kids and you'll see a woman and you'd be like, oh, look at that woman, like, being horrible to her kid. And when you do have kids, you're like, what did that shitty kid do to that poor woman?
Because so many people judge, and especially when you don't have kids, that you're like, you fall into this trap of like, oh, that child is throwing a tantrum, they're really badly behaved, like they're obviously not, you know, disciplined at home and all this type of stuff. I would never allow that to happen. And like the reality is, like, the kids are kids, like they're their own person. You can't completely control them and mold them into what you want. Some will turn out one way, some will turn out the other. And you can do your best with that, like. But
yeah, I've done that before. I've seen like kids throwing a tantrum, like that parent has got no, you know, doesn't have to manage their child, but I so you find yourself sometimes you do make an assumption or a judgment. But yeah, we're going to be we're the ones that are being judged pretty soon.
We're going to be like putting our foot in our mouth in the next podcast. We're like, oh, I'm going to breastfeed, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. It's going to be great. Yeah. I can't wait to have these conversations. And then at the end of the year, we're like, I remember I had a sleep in September.
I know, exactly.
It's the last time I remember.
Yeah. All right, so listen, it's an hour now, so okay. We'll wrap up. Any final thoughts? Put in the spot.
Yeah, I feel on the spot now. I don't know.
No?
Yeah, no, I'm excited. It's a really exciting time.
Yeah.
So 37 weeks, between 37 and 42, she can come anytime.
Woohoo! Nice one.
So next time we talk to you, I say we. Like this is my podcast.
Yeah, exactly. All right, cool. I'll do a little sign off. So thank you, darling. That's brilliant. Thank you so much for listening or for watching. I hope you enjoyed that episode. If you'd like to sign up for my platform, you can do that, as you know, kevinboyyoga.ie/membership. And teach workshops and retreats and stuff. Maybe retreats next year. We'll see how that goes. But everything is on Kevin Ball Yoga. Thank you as always. Really appreciate your time, and I'll catch up with you next week.